at the office?
Hey, yeah. Hi, Marlin. We are now live. Today with us, we have Marlin Johnson, Mr. Mindset. Um, Caroline is with us, but because she knows where her priorities are, a seller called her back. So she is coming back with us as soon as she's done closing this deal. So, how are you, Marlin?
I am doing good. I am like excited to be here. I'm excited to be back home in Arizona. Just touched down a few hours ago.
Mm.
So yeah, it's fun getting back into the swing of things. How are
Oh,
you? You just came back from an epic adventure.
yeah, Kalispell, Montana for community camp with Pace and different leaders in the real estate space. So it was a whirlwind. It was fun. Really, it was really nice to see those who are adjacent to us, not just those in our community. And so it was really really cool. I literally met like my idols. I was like I met my Oprahs. Um, because usually it's like, who do you want to meet? And like a lot of people think of Oprah, but for sure, like Jerry Norton, Brandon Turner. I mean, and I get to know who Pace is, who is my everyday Oprah. But it was really really cool. Yeah.
Right? And isn't it cool when you meet them and they are who you think they would be? Right? Like sometimes like they say don't meet your heroes and then you meet them and you're like, "Oh, this person is kind of rad."
Yeah, for sure. I had that feeling with Mr. Kiyosaki, where I'm like, ooh,
Oh my
he's getting a little old. But no, like Brandon Turner and Jerry Norton are just the nicest, most approachable people. And you're like, wow, they definitely deserve all the success they have. And like you want them to be even more successful.
Oh, I'm so
So
happy to hear that. They
yeah.
they definitely were inspirations for me. I know it's funny actually. So I didn't realize I had been watching Jerry Norton before I met Pace and before I
Mm,
got into Sub 2 and all that. Because you remember in the beginning when you're so new, you're taking in information left and right from so many different sources. So it never caught me that I was like, man, when I met Jerry, I was like, this guy seems really familiar. Why do I feel like I know him? And
yeah.
then I went and watched some of his old videos. I was like, oh, this is the guy whose videos I used to watch in the beginning when I was trying to learn creative financing. Like he was
Yeah.
actually talking about it back on his show. But then
Mhm.
Pace obviously is such an amazing storyteller that, once he started talking about it, I couldn't help but resonate.
For sure. I agree with you on that. So, tell me, so you went to New York, or what were you doing?
So I was being a good son, as I've been told by many flight attendants when they were like, "What are you traveling back?" So it was my mom's birthday. So I was in New York. That's why I wasn't at community camp this past weekend. I wanted
Mm,
to go home and hang out with my mom. We do a big like annual party each year for her birthday.
yeah,
And it's one of those things that I am making it a point to put more time on the calendar for family because
yeah,
it's one of those things. And I think many entrepreneurs, we get caught in this place where you want to build for family, you want to build for the people in your life. And while you're doing all that building, you end up pulling away from them without realizing. And the
yeah,
people you end up doing it for, you end up alienating and pushing them away. So now you have the thing, but
mhm,
you've got no one to share it with. So I'm
totally.
making it a big point this year. And I've been doing so since last year to just make more time for family, which is a little bit of a challenge for me. But this time around, it was a really fun experience. So I'm grateful to have been able to hang out with my mama. She and I went out and grabbed some lunch yesterday, and now I'm grateful to be back home in Arizona, re-inspired, re-excited to do work. In fact, I don't know if if I could talk about this. I don't really know where you want us to take the conversation today, but being back home, I just want to share this quick story because I think it will resonate with some of the people in the audience. Last year, I went home for the first time since moving to Arizona.
Mhm.
And my thought process was I haven't been home in over a year. I'll spend 2 weeks back here, hang out with mom, go see some friends, et cetera, et cetera. While I was home last summer, within, let's call it 2 days, I was absolutely regretting having made the trip back home. It
Oh, no.
was the place I grew up in. So it
Mhm.
was my hometown. And Ingrid, when I went running, when I went for my bike ride, when I just went and walked the neighborhood, I saw all the same people who used to hang out on the corner. right? The same
Mm,
corner boys, the same guys over at the park who would just smoke weed all day and drink. And they were in the exact same spot. Nothing had changed about their life, nothing had changed about their situation. I even stopped and started talking to one of the guys I had seen. A buddy of mine who I knew from high school, and I saw him. He was sitting on the park bench. So I went
mhm.
over and just started to engage him. And Ingrid, it felt like I went backwards in time and I was reliving an episode of a TV show I'd watched a million times over.
Yeah.
And all of that started to just absolutely affect my energy. The environment that I was in, I felt it
Mhm,
pulling me back. I felt it bringing up old habits and old
mhm.
thought processes and old behaviors that I had left behind.
Oof.
And it was so it was very I was really sensitive to it because I had separated from it. And
Mhm,
what was most alarming, it's kind of like if you've ever given up drinking soda. In the beginning, you don't really notice anything, but after a month or 2 and you go and you have that first sip of soda again, you feel how the carbonation burns the back of your throat, and you're like, "Was that happening to me the whole time when I used to
mm,
drink soda?"
mhm.
And so I realized the environment I had been sitting in my whole life had been doing that to me. It had been pulling me down energetically. Not saying that it's a bad environment. However, it wasn't the environment that was in alignment with the goals I wanted. And it just made me very hyper aware of it. So this year around, what I did was I got very focused on my DES, my desired end state.
Ooh,
So
DES.
your DES, this is something that grateful last year when I was out there. I was talking to a really good buddy of mine. You know him, Donovan.
Mhm,
I gave him a call when I was in town, and we talked about that. He said, "What's your desired end state?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You came home, but what was your intention for being there? Because ultimately, you're past the point of you can't just blame the environment anymore because you're aware. You have an awareness of what your environment's doing. So what do you want to create out of this?" And I said,
mhm,
I didn't think about it, to be honest. I just got on the plane and came home. He said, "Well,
mhm.
that's your problem. You didn't get intentional about what you wanted this trip to be for you. You didn't get intentional about any of this."
Ah.
So he says, figure out your desired end state. Understand what you want to feel. And then it's up to you now to figure out, okay, great. Based off of you wanting to feel a certain way. So for me, I wanted to, this time going home, I wanted to feel more connected to my mother. So that
Mhm,
was a very clear desired end state. I wanted to make sure that she felt special, that she knows I still care about her, that I would come back. And then I also wanted to make sure that I felt in control. So he from there I had to think, all right, what do I need to do in order to make that desired end state happen? And 2 parts. One was very simple with connecting with my mom, and I had to make sure I set intentional time for her. So I set a date. I asked her out on a date. I said, "Hey, can we go and get lunch? And like when are you free? Can we do that together?" So that
mhm,
date was on the calendar and no one and nothing could come and interrupt that time. And the second thing was I wanted to feel in control. Well, how do I
mhm.
feel in control? What makes me feel in control? Why do I feel so much control when I'm here in Arizona? It's my routines, my
Mm.
morning routines and my evening routines. So a
Yeah,
part of being out here, I made sure that was a non-negotiable. I was still waking up. I was still going for my runs. I brought my book with me so I can still read my book. I had my journal. I was doing the things that I can sandwich my day and have that sense of control. And it
yeah.
gave me the opportunity now to look at being home in a totally new light. And I got to see how much I grew, Ingrid. And that
Mhm,
was probably one
mhm,
of the coolest things being back in my childhood room, looking at the whiteboard, seeing the goals that I had written on the whiteboard, the dates
mhm.
that I had for them, the fact that almost all of them have been accomplished. There's 2 on that board that have not yet to be accomplished, and we're working on them still. And I think it's just because I forgot about them because I wasn't looking at them every day.
Yeah.
So
So I
it's
I
really
do
cool.
wanna, point something out. There's so much growth, and, sometimes with growth comes age. So I want everybody out there to say happy belated birthday to Marlin. He hit the big 30.
30
Uh
30.
So if you have him on Instagram or in the chat, make sure you say happy birthday to Mr. Johnson. We were really excited that we got to spend time with him on his birthday, and it landed before everybody left to their designated travel space. So happy birthday, Marlon! Happy
I
belated.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. It was one of the best birthdays I ever had. And yeah, it's really being able to see growth occur
Mhm.
is one of the tough things. So Ingrid, it's actually funny. Like coming home, when I went home, I reflected a lot. I reflect on airplanes. Airplanes are my favorite place because
Yes.
it's no one can call me. Although now I have Wi-Fi on the
Yeah.
airplane. I pretend I don't because I'm just like I
Delta.
don't want people
Yeah.
bothering me. Delta.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. And so on the airplanes, I typically spend a lot of time reflecting, a lot of time journaling, a lot of time thinking. And Ingrid, have you ever felt like this that maybe you aren't progressing as much? Like it feels like you're doing all the work every day, but you feel like you're not progressing because maybe you're so close to yourself. It's kind of like trying to watch yourself grow in height when you're a kid, or see yourself losing weight when you're going to the gym, or see yourself putting on muscle. When you're looking at it every single day, day in and day out, sometimes it doesn't feel like anything is changing. And this time around going home, I got to see how much change and how much growth had occurred in the time that I was gone. And I was like, wow, this was
Mm,
crazy.
mm.
So I think it's helpful sometimes for people to go back and revisit their roots and look backwards at where you've come from because it's going to show how much work you've done.
Yeah. Isn't there a book that talks about this? I haven't read it yet. The Gain and the Gap or
The
something like
gap,
that?
yep, the gap versus the gain.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. And especially those high achievers who are hard on themselves. Like I feel like I'm in that camp where I'm not as far as I'd like to be. But then I think back and I'm like, wait a second. I've did all this in like a year and a half. Like I think that's okay. Like, I wanted to own 3 properties the first year, and now we're trying to close on our 8th, and it's been a year and a half, right? So it's like, wait a second, like, maybe things are going the right direction, and we are making the rightful progress. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. And everything happens in its time.
Mhm.
And this is why I'm a big proponent of journaling. So one of the big things I did as well while I was home was I go through my old journals. And
Mm.
as I was going through my old journals, I pulled out the one from when I first started real estate. I'm talking Marlin learning about real estate terminology, learning what a mortgage is, learning what PITI means, like everything. Just looking through my notes showed me, wow, I knew nothing. And seeing my thoughts on paper showed me something very interesting about my path and what I'm doing. Ingrid, I thought recently with everything that I'm doing with coaching, with creating community, with wanting to pour into other people and help other people grow and create these
Mhm.
environments where it can be a catalyst for change was a relatively new thing for me. I thought that was, this was something that was new within the last year, year and a half, as far as really aiming myself at that.
Mhm.
Interestingly, as I went through my journals, Ingrid, do you know what I saw? I've been
You
talking about community since before I even like knew what real estate was. I've been talking about wanting to become the best version of myself to help other people become the better versions of themselves this
Uh-huh.
entire time. And it was really cool to see that I had written these things down. This is the power of writing goals down and
Yeah.
writing down what it is you desire. I'd been writing these things down, and slowly they've been happening and they've been building. And the people that have been coming into my life that we've been able to interact with have been helping make that happen. So if people are listening right now, guys, I want you all to get out your journals and write your goals, write your dreams, write your vision out in as much detail as possible. And it does not matter if you don't know how it's going to work. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you don't have a fully fledged plan for it yet. If you're not sure if you have the skills to do it yet, just start writing it out. Because when I wrote on my whiteboard, make $40,000 a month, that happened. When I wrote make $100,000, that happened. When I wrote hit 5,000 followers on Instagram, that happened. Like all the little things that I wanted happened because I wrote it out.
Yeah. I love that. And, I think I remember telling you when I first met you. And guys, we're talking about like really just the power of intentionality, the power of clarity. I'm actually wearing a shirt that says clarity equals passion. Um, uh, that is it's crazy how rewarding the universe will be with you if you know what you want. And I recall telling you, Marlon, when I first met you, that I had a hard time dreaming big. And I think, especially with somebody that may have a similar background to me, where I'm like, I come from, Colombia. Like, we were dirt poor, but I mean, we had enough to eat because our family always like made sure that that was the case. But when you come from such a small space or small dream, to think so big, sometimes you feel like you're not worthy of such a dream. You're not worthy of thinking so large. And so I had a lot of mind work to go through to think I am worth thinking I could live in a $3 million house. I am worth considering, like, I am worth that. Like, I am worth thinking I can have more in my life. But that also comes with, am I providing enough value? Do people am I serving?
Hmm.
Am I part of a community that I can serve? So that's part of the puzzle, but it first starts with the end in mind. Like, what kind of vision and dream can you build for yourself? So yeah. And it looks like Miss Caroline Kane has come back to us. Did you close it? Did you close the deal?
Well, no, that was an entry call for some reason. Pre-foreclosure, the short story. My VA reached out to her, and then she called me like 5 minutes before our podcast started. So I apologize for being.
Oh,
I want to show you guys. Where do you think I am right now? I haven't told either of you where I am.
Seattle.
I got no
What's
clue.
your guess, Marlin?
I'm trying to figure out. Like, yeah, I don't even
Ingrid
feel
can,
like you're in the U.S. anymore.
I see the market thing, and I'm like,
Ingrid can see the background. Yeah, so I am in Seattle.
oh,
There
are
you go.
you? I was totally
Yeah,
guessing.
we're in Seattle right now. Yeah,
Oh,
we're in Seattle at the moment. So
is
May and I have
is
just been working nomads.
is that a fish market
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah,
Oh,
we're at the
okay.
Pike Marketplace, actually.
I've
You guys,
never,
if you
I've
want me
never
to,
been
the
there.
fish market guy will do a display for me. Oh, it's so cool. We were here this morning, and he's like, I said, where can I go to get Wi-Fi? And he's like, oh, am I going to be on your podcast? Because I have to do my podcast. So if you want, I'll take my phone back over and we can watch him toss a fish back and forth. They did that this morning for us.
Yes,
It's pretty
please,
cool.
that would be so
And they're like,
cool.
can I be on your podcast? So yeah, we're in Seattle. You already know, Ingrid, our flight. Well, first we got delayed, and then they're like, we'll give you some funds. Ingrid, I didn't even tell you the best part. They'll give you funds to bounce your flight. So we accepted the money, but the money they give you is in Visa gift cards that you can only use for online shopping that are in $250 increments. So we've been booking our hotels online everywhere we go, and then May's been groveling of, here's my Visa gift card, can I pay through your keypad? So we've just been driving through the Pacific Northwest. We'll make it down to Phoenix. I think we'll get back to Phoenix this weekend.
That's amazing. That's
yeah.
so cool.
Who wants Caroline to visit her? Caroline,
yeah.
are you good?
Like,
Caroline, what do we got? What does the person have to do to get you to like stop at their house and like visit?
Yeah.
Could they buy you for dinner?
Meal.
Like
a hot meal would suffice. Would not be
Yeah.
bad at all. Or let me go door knocking. Tell me your door knocking secrets, because Ingrid, we got to see Kalispell, which I thought was cool, but I really like Jackson, so I've been looking into the pre-foreclosure laws everywhere. I'm like, how can I buy houses? So take me door knocking and give me a warm meal. And and I'll come hang out with you. So but I'm so bummed I missed the beginning of this, because I always want to hang out with you, Marlin, in here. And I was looking at the side chat. I want to know what your analogy is, the soda to the environment. I'm like, gosh, everybody's getting so much freaking value. This is so freaking sick. So I'm sorry I came in late, but I'm excited that you're on our podcast today. And I feel like you're talking about mindset, because I heard you, Ingrid, saying you had to get in the right mindset to where you could have a $3 million home. So what are we talking about? And what are we covering today?
Well, I certainly do want to. So I was going to transition into, I had a moment where I couldn't even think that big. And then, as we've talked about, it's important to have the right people around you, the right circle. Like Marlin and Caroline are definitely in my circle. And now I can think that way. And now I am accomplishing bigger things. So I'm super, super excited about the Mind Over Matter Mastermind so many M's that we're going to have. And it's going to be ran by you, Mr. Marlin Johnson, and how like amazing it's going to be, because really these are the types of breakthroughs that you can make, which is how can you get that clarity in your life? How can you accomplish that next step? So do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I mean, we could talk about it, and the way I want to talk about it is like this, because you're exactly right. When you talk about having that mental breakthrough that takes you to the next place where you're can beginning to envision having that $3 million home, being able to do this, a lot of times individuals struggle in their life because of a lack of exposure. In
Mhm.
fact, again, I was just back home where I grew up, and the people I hang out with, I have some best friends back home. I absolutely love them to death. And when I was hanging out and reconnecting with them, they were still struggling a lot in a lot of different avenues, financially, mentally, emotionally, physically. And when I was asking them, one of the first questions I always ask is, who are you hanging out with nowadays?
Mhm.
It's one of my go-to questions. I was like, I'm curious, like, who are you spending your time with? And typically the answers I get, which is common among average individuals, and it's also common among new entrepreneurs, is
Mhm.
no one. I'm hanging out with nobody right now. Right?
Huh.
Because typically we always think it's like, well, they're hanging out with like people that are bad influences. And quite honestly, most people are intelligent enough to step away from bad influences. Most people
Yeah.
recognize that's my friend that makes me drink too much. That's my friend that makes me eat too much. That's my friend that always gets us into bad decisions. And I always regret that night. So we avoid those people and we start to go, as we become adults, we start to go into self isolation. Many of our listeners right now are like, yeah, I'm working on growing my business. I'm working on doing this. And they go into self isolation. And yet they find themselves in a position where, man, like I feel like I'm doing a lot, but I'm not producing a whole heck of a lot. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels in mud and I'm not getting any traction going anywhere. And so I ask them the same question: who are you spending your time with? And oftentimes the answer is no one. I say that's a problem. See, you made a good decision by separating from everyone, but now you need to make a better decision by reconnecting into a new social group, into a new network, going to different rooms. So, this is going to bring me back to the Mind Over Matter Mastermind, which is it's an opportunity for people to get into the right rooms.
Mhm.
One of the biggest things, one of the greatest lessons I learned from one of my mentors, Tony Robbins. And when I say a mentor, this is not a mentor that I met physically. I have just consumed an ungodly amount of Tony Robbins videos and books and information as I was coming up as an entrepreneur. I was in a seminar with him one day and I heard him say one of the most powerful pieces of advice he had ever received from the Canadian's richest billionaire was the power of proximity. He
Mhm.
said that nothing had changed his life more than going and getting around the sort of people that he wanted to be like, going and getting into different rooms and different environments where being in that vibration, being in that frequency had the ability to change you permanently. And I really took that to heart. You know this, Ingrid. You know this, Caroline, because here I am in Arizona now, right? I
Mhm.
literally moved across the nation for this. And so, with the Mind Over Matter Mastermind, what we're doing is we're creating an environment for people to come together physically to gain physical proximity with other high level entrepreneurs, with other people who are interested and serious about growing themselves, so that we can go through what I'm calling physical and mental evolutions to create a transformation that's lasting. If anyone's ever like Ingrid, you know I'm a sports guy. I used to play a lot of sports. I skateboarded, snowboarded, played lacrosse, ran track, and where the biggest transformations occurred were when I was going through what we called Hell Week with my group, with my team, with my pack. And during this mastermind, it's going to be an immersive experiential implementation mastermind, which means it's not just sitting down and talking about, hey, this is what you do when challenges occur. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking through people through real time challenges and showing them how to overcome those obstacles in real time. And then we're also inviting out a few 7 and 8 figure earners to be in the room to connect, because when we don't have that exposure to these people and we don't get to understand how they think, how they speak, how they walk, how they talk, it's a mystery in our minds. And we start making up a whole lot of nonsense. And we use that nonsense that we make up to tell us excuses on why it can't be done. One of the best experiences, I'm sorry, I'm going to go into like a couple stories here. One of the best experiences I had was the first time I came to Arizona. I was invited out by Pace. Well, this is the second time actually. Second time I came out to Arizona, Pace had invited me out to come as a guest to one of the earlier masterminds. And during that time, I stayed in his home. And I was there for about a week with him and the family. And I learned more in that week in the house than I did from the actual mastermind, because I got to see all the nuance. I got to demystify what success looked like both inside and out. So again, this is the idea behind what we're doing with the Mindset Mastermind, with the Mind Over Matter Mastermind. It's really demystifying the ins and outs, the day-to-day, the things that you need to become an entrepreneur who succeeds, who's focused, who's achieving the goals that you want to achieve. So yeah, I'm excited about this one.
So I'm going to jump in while I have good internet here. I want to ask you a question. Like, because I know what it's been for me, and my internet's cutting out, so if I do cut out, I'll just be in the side chat here. But being around you, Marlin, and Ingryd, more so because I chose to live with you, Marlin. I'd live with Ingryd if she had an extra room and bathroom, but I chose to live with you, and it's opened up my mind, and I've made more money, and I've actually grown more mentally. So I'm wondering, like, I know being around you, I wanted that campfire effect. Who should be coming to this and who shouldn't? Like, should you come to this if you already think you're doing really well? Or should you come to this if you're like, okay, I'm at this little plateau, I think I can level up? Like, why should people be coming to this mastermind?
Great question. So the people that should come out to this mastermind, if you're doing really well and you feel like, hey, something's missing from a personal side, not just like I'm doing well in my business, but I'm maybe missing something in my personal side, my spiritual side, my physical side, you should come here, right? If you feel like there's something holistically missing from your development, from your growth. And if you're somebody who I like to say is, if you're new, if you're a brand new and you haven't even like been an entrepreneur for a week, I would say don't come to this yet. This is my personal opinion. Don't come out if you're brand spanking new, because what I want for you to do is, first, you need to make the test of time. You got to see if this is something that you're actually going to stick with, because the room you're going to be in with is going to be people who are very serious about what they're doing, people who are committed to growth, people who are committed to their development. And so I don't want the room being watered down by people who are just testing and just trying. We have another space for you for that. I don't want to push those people away, but this isn't the event for you. This event is for the people who are more committed and who are looking to take things to the next level, and they want to be around other people who are like-minded and who aren't just giving the growth lip service, who are willing to put their money where their mouth is, who are willing to put their action behind their words and do something to transform and do something to make change.
I appreciate that. And I actually like that. I wanted to ask that question for everybody on here and everybody who's kind of on the fence. I think this is really cool. And I know you've talked about this, Ingrid, and I know you used to this as well, Marlin. Like, put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, and you're either going to grow or you're going to know, and it's going to be like, this is in for me or I'm out. So I just wanted to, I think my internet's cutting out. But what I'm saying is, go all in, even if you're on the fence, everybody, but like, make it uncomfortable. Like, I think you're making this pretty affordable from what I'm understanding from what other masterminds are. Guys, if this is too, like, somebody that's 75 hard challenge with me, like, this is too easy. I'm like, make it harder for yourself. Like, put something on the line. Who are you going to connect with? Who's going to be your battle buddy if you come to this? Because I promise you, if you come and you interact with Marlin and you interact with Ingryd, you're going to level, and myself, you're going to just get wealthier from this. So if my video is cutting out, you can hear me, it's great. But I would say, put yourself in that uncomfortable situation and do it for the people that are counting on you. Everybody who's like, I believe in you. Don't miss out on this opportunities. Yep, exactly, Jade. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. And Marlin has made, every time I look at Marlin, I love him. Not only is he a handsome guy to look at, and I'm not even attracted to Marlin, but he makes me uncomfortable, and I grow in those uncomfort zones. Like, with Marlin, I'm like, oh man, like, he's making $500,000 and we got into this at the same time. Like, gosh, geez, this is kicking my, like, and then it's like, all right, I got turned up a little bit. So have people like Marlin in your back pocket. And the last question I'm going to ask before I give it over to Ingryd, because I'm seeing your frozen faces, but Ingryd's smiling at me. What I want to know is there any, like, you come to this mastermind, is there going to be like aftercare? Do people get to talk to you after the fact? Do people get to like potentially do deals with you or get some mindset stuff after the mastermind? What does it look like? Is there support once you come to the mastermind, or just get to interact with you?
Yeah, great question. So once you come into the mastermind, so first off, afterwards, right? Are we talking after, like after
Yeah,
the weekend?
aftercare.
Yep. So aftercare, I love that. Like I love that call, aftercare. So there is going to be support because you cannot do this alone. So afterwards, all the attendees are going to become participants of the MMC community, which is the Millionaire Mindset community. They will have lifetime access to that community. And what that is it's a group of, basically, this is the thing that I wish I had like when I was getting started in entrepreneurship. It's a community of like-minded individuals who are working on their personal development. See, the biggest challenge I think that many people run into, and they don't realize they're even running into it, is they get all the technical knowledge and the technical skills. You sign up for the courses, you go through the sub twos, the TTPs, the astro flippings, the flipping masteries. Like, you get the course, you get the information. Max Maxwell, you watched every wholesale episode of Wholesale Hotline. Like, you've seen everything. And I'm just using real estate because most of our people are like real estate investors. And you have all the knowledge, and yet you're not producing the result. And you cannot, for the love of you, figure out why. And I talk to these people, and Caroline, I've talked to literally thousands of people. You and I run the daily dials in the morning. We do the sales training for people. We do the mindset Zooms for people. We've had hundreds of people on Zooms at the same time. And I just start asking them. I do it one-on-one. I do it in group setting. What's going on? And within 2 minutes of them talking, I can already hear it. It's like, oh, you're not doing anything for your personal development. When I ask them, what books are you reading? Right? What are you doing outside of the real estate? Nothing? You're not even aware of personal development? Are you kidding me? Like, I love you, but stop being a knucklehead. In fact, you two were at the community camp, and Cody Barton came up and he said essentially that your
cannot right. You cannot. Because that was the quote I posted, because it was the one that resonated the most, which is, you cannot grow your revenue higher than your personal growth. Yep. So everything is dependent on you being focused on your personal development.
And it's one of the most true statements. Your revenue will never far exceed your personal development. Even if and people have experienced this. Like, look at your own personal case history, y'all. Think about the time where you've got that big fat check and then there was a drought afterwards. What happened? You were coming back to match your thermostat. See, internally, there's a paradigm that runs the show. Internally, there's a self-image of you that runs the show. What I want to do is I want to shatter that self-image, and I want to recreate the next one. And what happens is it's a lot easier to do this when you're around other people who are actually doing it. And the analogy I like to use is, imagine I gave you a book and I said, hey, Caroline, I'm going to teach you how to sing, and I'm going to teach you how to hit this high note. And here's the book. And, just hit the high note. And Caroline's like trying, and she's like, I can't hit it. I'm like, just hit it. And she keeps trying. And then I finally come over and I say, hey, Caroline, look, listen, I'm going to do it. And I start to sing that high note. I start to hit it. And I say, just match this frequency. It's going to be a lot easier for her to match the frequency because now she's been exposed to it. Oftentimes people struggle to see that ideal future, to see who they can be, to see the potential, to see what it's like to have a fortified mind, because they haven't been exposed to it. They're around people who give up when things get a little bit difficult. They're around people who don't think as large. They're around people who don't make it seem easy. In fact, one of my favorite things, if anyone ever weightlifts, and Ingryd, you are in CrossFit, you've seen this, you would go into those gyms, and sometimes, have you ever seen a person show up and they take your max weight and they're warming up with it, and they're just tossing that weight around like nothing. And you're like, well, what the heck is going on? It makes you start to reconsider, hey, maybe that weight's not as heavy as I thought. Maybe it's not as impossible as I thought. And you start to reframe your mental because, again, now you're in proximity. You're getting that exposure to a higher way of living. So essentially, that's what, like, I get super excited about this. Like, clearly I get a little too geeked up about this, but this is what changed my life. This is what took me from when I wanted to start doing parkour. I became a pro parkour athlete off of just proximity. I had no right becoming a professional, but I became a professional by spending time with other people who were at a higher level than me. When came to entrepreneurship, I did the same thing. I cheated. I absolutely cheated. I went and I found people who were performing at a higher level and I got into those rooms. I did whatever it took to get into those rooms. I paid, I flew, I traveled for it, whatever needed to be done. So now I want to be able to give that same opportunity to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love what Chris said.
Ooh, I love that.
As long as you copy the
Oh,
right cat.
that is such a good one, Chris. That is such a key because I'm a big visual learner. It makes me think of that guy who was the first one to run a sub 5 minute mile, or was it sub 4 minute mile?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody thought it was possible. 4. And then after he did it, like a month later, like 30 other people did it. So, guys, who wants to copy off the right cats? Who wants to be able to hang around the right people that are doing deals? And like, if you feel like you fall into that, you need to reach out to friggin' Ingryd and Marlin on this. So I'm done asking questions because I keep cutting out. So Ingryd, I'm handing it back to you.
Right on. Well, Marlin, I love the stories you're telling, and I love that not only can we talk about the actual mindset, mind over matter mastermind. Sorry. But we actually get to do it in one of the properties that we bought in this very, very intentional approach that you were talking about, right?
Mhm.
Like that story transpired by you saying, I would love this kind of house, me understanding your vision, and then going and find it. And now it's like a dream that became the reality. So it's really cool.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Like, we nicknamed the house like it's called the Mindset Manor, but we nicknamed the house the Manifestation House because it was a manifestation of exactly that, of a goal to create an environment where people could come together, where entrepreneurs could come together and be around like-minded individuals. In fact, like I came home earlier today and Daryl was upstairs locking up deals, and the energy just like shot through the roof because I haven't seen Daryl since before the weekend. And then we just start feeding off of each other's energy. And so it's the same thing. And what I want to encourage people to do, I really want people to think about this. If you've been in isolation and you're trying to grow alone, you might be able to move quickly, but you're not going to go very far by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you start to get together and you get together in a pack of people. You have, Caroline likes to call them your accountability buddies or your battle buddies. You start to get battle buddies. You want to create a circle of battle buddies for yourself. This event's going to give you the opportunity to do that, but more so, even if you're not coming out to this event, this is something that each person should be doing in their local environment. You need to find somebody. I have a handful of people who are my go-tos for different aspects of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I have the people I go to when I need help with creative finance. I have the people I go to when I need help with my personal development, with my mental health, with my spiritual health. So, yeah, I get excited again. Like
I got to jump in while I can because now I have good signal. Guys, that's another thing that I've learned from you, Marlin. Like, you shouldn't just go to one person. You shouldn't go to your doctor to learn about financial education. Like, you should have certain coaches for different areas of your life. You're going to go to a strength coach to get stronger. You're not going to ask them how to avoid paying taxes on things. You're going to have somebody who's going to help you in every area. And being around Ingryd and Marlin has opened up my mind. So that's one key thing I'd say just while you dug into that. Like, I hadn't thought about that until you brought that up to me, Marlin. We should have different coaches in different areas. Ingryd, you posted about a fitness coach you have, and I messaged you on Instagram. Like, if Ingryd's using this guy, I want to use him. If it's helping her out, I want that. Like, it does come back down to it. Marlin, when I downloaded the Nike running app because you told me to, like, most clarity in my mind. I did fasting because you and Daryl did it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I get to hang around people that are being successful. So being in these areas where you guys can find other people and how they're excelling and excelling faster as a group with your battle buddy, we're going to war every day, guys. Are we going to like back down and like let our emotions or something win, or are we going to level up and make a better community for our families and everybody else around us? So I really like that little idea that you said of having coaches for different areas of your life. I'm cutting out again, so Ingryd, it's yours.
Yeah, and what's interesting, right, is when I think about the times in my life when I've had any sort of growth in a major way, I'm talking like a catalyst change where it's like been a big leap. It's typically come when I've been with a group of people, right? For example, I think back to when I first got started with parkour. And I know this has nothing to do with entrepreneurship, or people think it doesn't, but this was really where it started to get very crystal clear to me. In parkour, we would do things that could be seen as dangerous because there was inherent risk. We're on rooftops, we're jumping roof to roof, we're flipping, doing things of that nature. Now, understand we practice and we build and we work on the skill before anyone ever climbs up to the 10th floor of a building. They've done it thousands of times at ground level. So we mitigate the risk very much like in real estate. We mitigate our risk by underwriting 1,000 deals before we purchase that first one, before we put that first one under contract. And there was my first roof gap ever where I'm getting ready to jump and I am just frozen in terror. And the jump couldn't be more than maybe 6 feet out, and it's only about 10 feet up. So it's not a life or death situation, but it is high enough that if I fall, it's going to hurt. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at it and I'm eyeing it. And I know I can do it. Mentally, I'm consciously aware that I have the capability, I have the skill, I have the power, I can make the jump. And yet I couldn't get myself to do it. I couldn't alone get myself to do it. And thankfully, I had a good buddy of mine, Vinny Vinciguerra. He was standing there with me. And Vinny had been training for a few years before me. He had a lot more experience. And he was able to guide me through it and talk me through the jump and actually get me to make the leap. Because what he did was he said, listen, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to make the leap first. And then you're going to watch me make the leap. You're going to look around. And then when you turn back, the moment you turn back, that's you making a decision that you're going to go. And I trust you that you're going to go. I wouldn't have brought you over to this roof gap if I didn't know that you were capable of this. And once you look at the jump again, you're going to jump within 3 seconds. And so I do this and I make the leap across. I land on the other side and I was just so elated. And the biggest thing that helped was seeing Vinny do it and knowing that he trusted me and knowing that he was someone that, because I got to spend some time with him, I started to feel a resonance with him. I started to feel a connection. What started to happen was it wasn't that Vinny was this elusive character who I couldn't ever touch, who I couldn't ever connect with. I started to feel like, man, if he could do it, I can do it. And we start to demystify it. This is the power of proximity. This is the power of going and spending time with the right people. Again, Ingryd, Caroline, you two just came back from an amazing event filled with some absolutely all-star human beings. And when you were there, was it an intimidation factor or was it a, wow, these are my people and look at the cool things all of us are doing and look at what we can all continue to do as we grow together?
Yeah, it was definitely more collaboration. I didn't have a sense of intimidation at all, especially since the folks that we look up to are so warm and caring and loving, to be honest with you. And even when they presented, it, like, as they say, your vibe attracts your tribe. And so really it's always really incredible, even when we go into our masterminds and things like that, just how much fun they are. Like, my inner child gets excited, right? Because you're like, oh wow, this is fun, like we're having fun. Like, I jumped into the lake, I think the lake was in the 70s or something. I jumped into the river when we went rafting. It was like 54 degrees. Like it was just a lot of fun. And to your point, when you see other people showing you how they've done it, it's like, oh, they're just like me. And what I like to say is we put our bras all in, one arm at a time. But yeah, it's that same way. It's like they're showing you it's possible.
And the thought I had was, why not me? When you see all these people and you have conversations with them, like, if they can do it, I can do it. And this is, I had to do an episode. I'm doing some stuff with Bigger Pockets, and I did a Zoom earlier, and I was helping somebody through this, and I was replying to a comment. I was like, if I can be successful in this business, you guys can too. So just whenever you're going into this, why not me? Think that. Like, why couldn't I? If Marlin's successful in this, like, Marlin, did you open up this podcast when you decided to quit your job and get into real estate?
Do you hear her
You
question?
she
no,
cut out a
I
little
was-
bit.
I
think
cut
she
out.
was
Did you
saying.
raise
I
my
think
phone?
she,
Your first
yeah.
job. Did you tell everybody what your first job was when you decided you're like, I'm sick of this? Like, can you tell everybody where you came from and what inspired you?
Yeah, for sure. So before real estate, I mean, I had more than just one job. I literally was working 3 jobs at a time. Shout out to being a New Yorker. And everyone in New York works multiple jobs. And I was working in a catering hall. I was working in a parkour gym coaching parkour. And I would clean AutoZones. I would scrub AutoZone floors at nighttime, like after AutoZone's closed. All while being a full-time student as well. So kind of, I guess, 4 jobs if you want. And while I was doing that, something like really interesting happened one night. I'm standing inside the catering hall and I had it like I got pissed off. I just like threw the mop down on the ground. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night. And for the first time in my life, I'm looking around and realizing, dude, my life sucks. Like this legitimately sucks. Like I'm not happy with where I am in life. I'm not happy with what I'm doing. And I started to look forward into the future. I projected out to my 90-year-old self. I call it the rocking chair experiment. I saw myself sitting on the porch, rocking back and forth as a 90-year-old Marlin. And from that vantage point, from that person, I started to look backwards on my life. And I just began to ask myself, let's look at your life and see how it went. And I finished up college. I got my doctorate, so I became a physical therapist. I had the job that was paying between like $80,000 to $160,000. I had the stupid house in the suburbs with like the white picket fence and the stupid little dog that yaps a little too much, like the 2 kids, the wife that I was like, I don't even know if I really love her or not, but like we're here together. Like I'm just being honest, like that was the life I saw for myself because that was the life of pretty much everyone around me. And I'm not saying that's a bad life. Like, let me be the first to say, if one of you out there, that's the ideal dream life that you want, please go and make that happen. Like, seriously, more power to you. Enjoy it, love it, live it up. That wasn't the life I wanted. That lifestyle didn't excite me. It felt like I was settling. It felt like I was just going with the flow of everyone else around me. And so in that moment, I was like, screw this. And I started to look back as like that old man still, as that 90-year-old man. And I began to ask myself, you know, how do I feel? And he just felt regret. There's so much regret he felt. And he felt regret not based on what he did. He felt regret based on what he wanted to do that he never did. He felt regret that he never took the risk, that he never went for it, that he never jumped in, that he never experimented and figured out, hey, could I have made that thing work? Could I have gone and traveled the world? Could I have figured out that passive income? Could I have figured out that business? Could I? He had no answer for it because he never took the risk. And so in that moment, that night, I quit. And I wish I can tell people that in that moment, I had absolute clarity on this is what I'm going to be doing next, that it's going to be real estate, that you're going to figure out wholesaling, you're going to figure out buying, holding property. You'll have a portfolio of whatever, like 20 something properties. Like you'll figure this out. I didn't know any of that with clarity in that moment. All I knew was this ain't it. So if you're feeling that, if you're out there and you're thinking to yourself, this ain't it. Like what I'm doing in life right now, it's not this. If I had to do this for the rest of my life, go ahead and end it now. Then we need to have a conversation. Seriously, like I know that might sound like a little morbid, but seriously, like you should not be living a life like that where you're waking up and you're pissed off at your life. That's not normal. Yet other people carry on about this way. That's the environment you're in. You're going to start to go with that. You will, like, you become a product of the environment that you spend your time in. So I want to show you a different way of living. And I can't promise you that this will mean that you will never be hit with failure. In fact, I can guarantee you, if you start living life this way, if you start living life on your own terms, you will probably embrace more failure than you're embracing now. But failure is a stepping stone to get you where you want to go. In fact, I don't really believe in failure because the only way to fail is for you to quit. It's for you to give up. What happens is you will experience temporary losses that provide you, that gift you with a lesson. I have the saying that never walk away from your loss without also taking your lesson. A lot of people leave the most valuable piece of the loss on the table. Oh, it's like the people that eat their chicken and leave the meat on the bones. It's like, you guys are weird. Like you know those people that have like the ribs and like you're looking at it and like, oh my gosh, do you even know how to eat your meat? You don't. So you never want to walk away from the loss without also taking the lesson. And the people that you're around will help change your perspective and will start to help you see what you might be missing as opportunities. Because with everything in your life, there's always going to be the seed for its equal growth, for a bigger growth, in fact, because your perspective changes. So I just really, what's up, Laura? I just really want to like emphasize that. I love Laura. I just saw leverage with Laura on the side.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, I have been seeing in the chat there's some people who are struggling with focus, right? And one of the things that Caroline states in this call or in this podcast a few times in the past is what I've said that I learned in the Good to Great book, where if you narrow the focus, you can expand your reach. But what I'm hearing is they're not sure on what they should focus on. So what are some practical
what would be the first thing you'd focus on, probably?
Oh, that's a great question. So the first thing to focus on with a person, and this is actually something I'm going to be walking everybody through on the first day of the mastermind because it's just so critical, is going through a clarity workshop. So there's a clarity workshop that I do. I learned it from Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins. At this point, I've experimented on close to 400 or 500 people with this, taking them through this to help them gain their focus. And it starts with establishing, it's like you have to think like a GPS, right? If we're trying to get somewhere, that's what a lot of people want to do. They want to get somewhere. They don't like where they're at. They want to get somewhere new. And that's why they say I'm struggling with focus, because ultimately they're saying, Marlin, I'm trying to get to a new destination in my life because I don't like the current destination. Awesome. If I'm using my GPS, first thing it needs before I can even begin to type in the new destination, it needs my current location. We have to establish where are you at right now. We need to know objectively the truth. A lot of people are struggling, not because they don't have the capability, but because they don't want to look at the honest truth of where you are today. Being able to look at your situation objectively is a critical skill. I had to do this myself. There was a time a little over a year ago, I had to sit down with myself objectively and be like, dude, you got consumer credit card debt like a knucklehead because you were doing some bad behavior and you weren't paying attention and you weren't watching it, and not looking at it is not going to make it go away. You can't put your head in the sand. So we had to establish, okay, this is where you're messing up. Now let's fix this. Let's do something about it. Let's also establish this is what you're doing well. Let's get objective, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we're going to establish your current location and we're going to call it the truth, because that's all it is. It's not good or bad. It is what it is. From that standpoint, we then want to talk about where we're going. And this is where people struggle, because typically people are so close to the today pain that it's hard for them to think about a better future. And typically they're trying to think about a better future, maybe a few months out, a few year out, like 1 year out. The problem that I find oftentimes, Ingrid, is when we're only going about a year into the future, it still mentally feels too close to the present moment for that individual, that they start to carry today's baggage into that 1 year future. So instead, I like to shoot them out further. I like to expand the time horizon. And I like to ask them, hey, let's wave the magic wand 10 years from now. Tell me, what's your ideal life look like? Don't worry. This is like, we're playing hypothetical. We're playing just pretend right now, but tell me 10 years from now, give me the ideal future, right? Money's not an issue. You're doing the sort of work you love doing. You have the family, you live where you want to live. Give me some details, like make it juicy for me. And it takes them a little while, but they start to let their imagination kick on. A lot of people don't turn their imagination on anymore. And it's a shame, because it's one of the most powerful pieces of machinery that we have access to as humans. So we let the imagination start to kick on and rev up a little bit. And we start to see that house. We start to see the boat. We start to see the family. We start to see the pets. We start to see the sort of shape we're in, the sort of accolades we've accumulated. And we start to get that vision of a better future. And from that standpoint, we start to change it into the present moment. We start to speak about it in terms of the present, because the mind doesn't know past or future. It only knows present moment. It only knows right now, because to the mind, only one time exists, and that's right now. This is why if you start thinking about a terrible past, what happens? You start getting anxiety today. Your anxiety doesn't start happening 10 years ago. It starts happening in this very moment. You start getting anxious about the future. Where does that show itself? It presents itself in this current moment. So we have right now. So we start speaking about that ideal future in the present moment. And from there, we don't stop here. We got to get the fuel. The fuel to make these goals happen, the fuel to make these dreams happen is we have to establish the why. Too often I hear people say, I want to have $1 billion company. Great. Why? And they get silent on me. They look at me, they blink. I'm like, oh my gosh, why do you want $1 billion company? Is it because you heard someone else say it? Or is it because you actually have a reasoning behind it? See, Elon Musk, he's not growing $1 billion company. Elon Musk is trying to get humans onto another planet because he believes it's for the survival of humanity. There is a deep-seated mission behind that man's behavior, behind what's pushing him. He's playing an infinite game. His why is strong enough so he's able to accomplish anyhow. The same thing has to be here and true for other people. I meet so many people that get into real estate where they are struggling to make it happen. And they're like, man, I've been putting in years on this. Years. I've met people that have been doing 4 or 5 years struggling. And when I ask them, well, why are you doing it? Well, when they finally get to it and we crack that nut, and I go through a sequence with them called 7 Levels Deep, and I go through these whys, and we start to get to the core of it. I find out like, oh my gosh, you're not motivated by any of the stuff you're currently doing. And none of the stuff you're doing is going to take you towards the thing that you're actually motivated by, that's in alignment with you. This isn't what you should be doing. It's not that real estate's a bad vehicle. It's not your vehicle. But people don't get in touch with their why. You've got to know your why, because that's where your fuel comes to run the marathon. And then finally, after we establish the why, we then need to learn what capabilities are necessary. So step 4 is going to be understand what's the capabilities. When I look at Ingryd 10 years from now, who's absolutely crushing it, who's living her ideal life, who's living her dream life. When I see Caroline 10 years out, who is just a rock star of a human being, even more so than she is today, what's the difference? If I could take my time machine and I can travel into the future and I could go and grab future Caroline and I could bring her to the present moment and I could stand her side by side with present Caroline and future Caroline, what are the things that I would notice are the difference? If I spent an hour with each of them, what would I say is the difference? Would I say, hey, future Caroline has more leadership skills? Maybe future Caroline has more, her communication skills are higher. Maybe her level of self-confidence is through the roof. Maybe I don't know what those things are for each individual. But we start to figure out what are the things that the future version of me has as far as capabilities and skill sets. Because ultimately, the reason we haven't achieved what we want to achieve at the next level yet is because we have not yet built the skills or capabilities necessary. And when I establish that, interestingly enough, this starts to create the bridge from where I am to where I want to be. Because if I notice that simple example, my goal is to a year from now do $100,000 in sales, and I'm at a place where I'm $30,000 in debt, maybe I see that, hey, the future version of me has absolutely amazing sales skills. Okay, great. So what do I need to be focusing on in the day to day? I need to work on attaining the skills that the future Marlin has, because by nature of obtaining those skills, I become that future version and I will have what he has. I work on the becoming first. Be, do, have. That's our formula. Be the person, then do the things to have the result.
Fire, like there's smoke coming out, so much fire coming out of there. I love it so much, Marlin. I do want to be respectful of your time. You did need to end a couple minutes early today. Just wanted to tell you it's 4:59.
Oh yeah, we got some culture clients to go work with right now.
Yeah, it was really hard for me to stop you because it was so good. So just a reminder to everybody. So I can stay a few minutes to kind of close things out if Marlon has to go, but look at how much this man preaches. Like, how can you not be inspired by all of the things that he says? And for me, he's been my personal coach, my personal business coach. And so I've only seen my trajectory go up. So I really, if I can, if I could say anybody to go follow, to go and potentially join, it would definitely be Marlin.
I appreciate you both.
Marlin,
I'm
if I'm not cutting out, thank you so much. That's all I want to say. This is such, I was like, I have to find a way to get Wi-Fi for this because I love being able to hear you and I miss you. So thank you for coming on here.
I miss you too. Have fun driving. I can't wait for you to be back in Arizona. Ingryd, Caroline, I appreciate you both immensely for allowing me to come onto the podcast. I appreciate you so much for letting us talk about the mind over matter, talking about mindset. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out, direct message me. I'm happy to see how many people want to come out. We only have 8 spots left right now. So if you are interested, make sure that you DM me or go to the link in my bio. You'll be able to get registered and you can apply. Just because you apply, I got to say this, just because you apply does not necessarily mean you get the spot right away. It is application based. So please make sure that you get the application in sooner rather than later. And the dates are September 8th through the 10th. So if you're going to be traveling to Arizona, I want to make sure that you're able to get your flights in. And appreciate you guys all for the happy birthday wishes. Some people are still saying happy birthday in the side chat. So thank you all so much. I'm going to run out of here so I can go get my coaching clients started. I appreciate you, and I will see you later.
Bye,
Love you,
Marlin.
Marlin. Thank you. Ingryd, I'm going to let you wrap it up because my internet I've not really seen your faces for the entire podcast. So the floor is yours. Thank you for setting this up, guys. If you have not already, I know there's still a few people on here, give Ingryd some love because she's the reason Marlin was on here today. So if you got any value from Marlin being on here, please, please, please let Ingryd know. If you're not on her Instagram, you should be following her. You guys are going to help us if you like and subscribe to this video as well. So thank you so much. I know most of you guys are over from, or a lot of you are on Marlin's YouTube right now. But if you go over to our YouTube, we're just trying to grow this so we can get more people on the Explain It podcast. I know some of our best ones were when we had Michael Frankie on here talking about pre-foreclosures. So Kayla, I know that you were on here earlier talking about pre-foreclosures. Our goal is to make this as free and accessible for everybody. And by you guys hitting the like button on YouTube and subscribing to our channels, it lets us know that this is valuable and we should keep doing this. So Ingryd, I'm handing it over to you. The floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Again, back to what Marlin said, you can go to his link on his bio on Instagram, or you can go to my bio on my Instagram to apply to come to the mastermind. We're super excited. Again, it's going to be held at the $1 million property that we purchased through sub-2 terms, and it was completely manifested by Marlin. So I hope you guys can join us. Again, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe to all our respective pages. And thank you so much. Remember, we do this podcast every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Arizona time. The only week we didn't do it this year was because of community camp last week. But we intend to keep this Wednesday rolling. So every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Arizona time, tell your mama, tell your sister, tell your daddy too. Because we're here to answer all the questions about all the things related to business and real estate. And we like to go into a little bit more detail than your typical podcast so that you get some really tangible things to walk away with. So thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your week and see you back next week on Wednesday.